And we're live, guys. It is, first of all, welcome to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast, brought to you by the American Bass Club, Grant Rods, Crusher Lures. AmericanBassClub.com. I got that right that time, Dan. I do apologize about that. Anyway, it is Let's Talk Fishing podcast honor to have on who are two of the greatest smallmouth bass fishermen I've ever known, like Trombley and Dan Mundy. Dan Mundy, also of the American Bass Club. How are you doing tonight, guys?
Doing great. How about yourself, Jay?
I'm doing great, despite the fact it's outside right now. And as you guys know, I'm a northern boy at heart. I don't think smallmouth bass exist in this kind of heat.
I bet they don't. They get pretty tough down here when it's that hot.
Oh, yeah, I bet they do. I bet they're just looking for the coldest water they can find.
Yeah, they tend to be real deep.
So Mike, you're from Ohio, correct?
Actually, I'm from Michigan. I was born and raised in Ohio till I was about I was either 45 or 46. And I met my lovely wife in Michigan here, and I ended up moving to Michigan. And I actually live just west of Detroit Metro Airport, just outside of Belleville, Michigan.
Okay. And Dan, of course, a little bit further north than that.
Yeah, we're central. We're just north of Ann Arbor, about 45 minutes.
Man, right there, guys. Saginaw Bay, St. Clair, Erie. Geez, all those inland lakes that are just fantastic. I caught big smallmouth in.
This is God's country for smallmouth fishing.
Yes, it is. We are extremely blessed here with the smallmouth. Just about anywhere you drive from the house, you can hit a lake that's got good smallmouth in it. So it's pretty awesome.
Are you in the room that has those big smallmouth?
I am. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if I can get.
All those. I can see right now is an American flag. There it is.
Yeah,
look at that big old girl. Look at that big old girl.
There's the other one, but yeah, there's those are the big ones. Maybe if I push it back far enough, I don't know.
How big are those?
I don't have. I haven't caught near as many smallmouth. I think that. I've caught countless smallmouth in my life, but I don't think I'm anywhere near what Mike's caught. Mike's one of those where you kind of go like this because he's kind of the smallmouth guru.
No, not at all. We just have fun with it. Get lucky once in a while.
Yeah, that's how I was. I spent a lot of time fishing Green Bay, and that whole Door County area. And, I caught a lot of 4-pounders, every once in a while a 5-pounder, but, there were days when we'd catch 30 of them. There's also days when we got some days when we drive, 6 hours up there and couldn't even launch the boat. Took one look at that and said,
Yeah, it gets rough. I fished it one time for a tournament up there, that Sturgeon Bay Open. That's a neat place.
I fished
Love
that.
to go back.
One thing I didn't like about the Sturgeon was about 40 minutes of out of that river.
Yeah.
No wakes on.
Right. That makes it tough.
I remember a bunch of the brand new Optimaxes were blowing up because they had a problem with supplying oil, and they were busy. The guy at Mercury, the Mercury trailer was busy.
Yeah, I can remember those days, FLW days. They just went through a stretch there. They make a phenomenal motor, but
they do. I love Mercuries. I've owned a few of them. Owned a few Evinrudes too. But guys, so where are you fishing right now?
Right now, it's Detroit River, Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair. So for us, a lot of people don't know this. Ohio, the Michigan waters of Lake Erie and Ohio have been closed Michigan's been closed since, gosh, I think it was around the first of the year, maybe. And Ohio went out the first day of April. Ohio went out, and it actually doesn't come back in until this weekend. So we've actually been in a closed season here, for going on almost 2 months now. So looking forward to that opening back up, and we'll get back into our tournament scene here.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. What you, Dan?
Yeah, we have we've been fishing like mostly St. Clair, St. Clair River, and then up north. I did a lot of fishing up at the beginning of the year. I love going up in northern Michigan in the spring. Some of the pre-spawn bites that go on up there are phenomenal. So we're pretty fortunate to be able to have that, at our disposal. So I ran up there a few times. Other than that, it's been real busy with the American Bass Club, getting all that kind of up and organized and running, and that's been taking up quite a bit of extra time. So we haven't spent as much time on the water as we normally do, but it was fun. We went up north and had a good time. It's always beautiful in northern Michigan, no matter when you go up there.
Tough to beat up there, isn't it, Dan?
It is. It's really tough. I mean, it's a beautiful place. The water is, gen clear, and it's just so much fun.
And the waters don't fish like Great Lakes waters either. They tend to fish more like inland lakes, which they are.
They do. Yep, they sure do, and they're fun.
And what do you mean by that, Mike?
So basically, I'm going to say 90% of what we're fishing on the Great Lakes are bait fish driven, whether that be gobies or alewives, shad. And when you get on the inland lakes, it is almost all crayfish driven. Bait colors change, turns into something that's more of a green pumpkin, definitely more bait fish driven. There's a lot more perch up there too. St. Clair, of course, has a pretty heavy perch bite, but yeah, definitely the crayfish, I think, are dominant up in those northern waters. At least that's what I found anyway. How about yourself, Dan?
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a definite that, and like you're talking about the perch, they really seem to key on those. It's almost like a perch is like a one of your wife's homemade cookies. You know what I mean? They're hard to beat.
So you're saying the inland lakes are probably we would be fishing them like I would, with swim jigs that are structured jigs that imitate a crawfish then?
Yeah, absolutely. For me anyway, it's going to be something, crayfish oriented. In some cases early in the year when it's really cold, I'm going to be throwing something that doesn't have a whole lot of movement. It's going to be tight to the bottom, and sometimes a swing head. I'll throw, anything crayfish, soft plastics on a swing head and just work it slow across the bottom. But as the temperature picks up, that changes. They like to have a little bit more movement, get into a menace grub. Menace has a little bit more pincher movement, twister movement. And that seems like that starts kicking in once you start hitting the 40s. But it seems like when the water's in the 30s, they like something that just doesn't have quite as much movement.
You mean something like a net head? Net
head too, absolutely.
Yeah, that works well. It's amazing how they do that. Like it's crazy how a little bit of a temperature change can change the whole mode of how they feed.
Yeah, that blade kicks in too when it's cold. I think this year was one of the coldest temperatures that I caught them on Lake Erie, and it was 35, and we were catching them on a blade. That blade is something that probably a lot of the southern guys, they might not see a whole lot of that. But up here, it's pretty much a staple real early in the season, which you wouldn't think it would have anything to do with catching them because there's so much movement that's imparted by it. But there's something about that. I think it's all in the fall, obviously. You never get hit on the rise. But when it drops, man, they smoke that thing. And it's all fast movement. There's just something about it in cold weather. It works phenomenal. And it'll work right into the 50s as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing bait and I personally have got to spend more time playing with that because I don't use it as much as I should. It's not it's not something that I've done a lot of, and it's super effective. I don't know, it works really well. So
Blade bait. I just wouldn't think about. I've caught a lot of walleye using those things, and particularly saugers on the Illinois River where I used to live. And of course, when I think of blade baits, I think of white bass.
Yeah, it's killer on smallies. You definitely want to try it.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Wow. When I get up there, my friends, I like to go to lakes of Wisconsin where my friends guide, and we use a lot of drop shots on the sand flats. And I can't complain when you're catching a bass on every third cast.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal way to catch them.
Yeah, that's obviously, that drop shot has come a long, long way, and everybody keeps bringing out different baits and different things that you can use. And it's just a technique that keeps evolving. I mean, there's so many good baits that you can use for that, and so many different ways you can actually fish it. I've been playing around with the largemouth in some of the inland lakes around us. And we don't have a, giant largemouth like you guys do down south, but the bigger largemouth, I've been actually successful pulling some bigger largemouth out of like real thick weed patches with a drop shot versus doing it any other way. Like they don't want it for some reason within those thicker weeds. They don't want it right on the bottom. They want that suspended above, just a little bit above the bottom. And that using a drop shot, it's just a different way. It's something they haven't seen a whole lot. And it doesn't,
punching
a lot of guys.
With this?
Yeah. I lost
Wow.
you there. I didn't hear. Yeah, I was
punching
dropping
through the weeds with this drop shot.
Yep, with the drop shot. And it's
Wow.
It's something they don't see a lot.
That's something I would have thought about doing, is punching through weeds with a drop shot. I've done that Texas rigging. I've done that with jigs.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do a lot
Right.
of punching down here. And in fact,
Yeah,
I had never really punched till I moved down south.
right. Yeah, you almost have to do that down south to survive. But it's a different look.
If you want to catch fish.
Yeah, it's a different look. It's something that they haven't seen before. So it gives you a little bit of an advantage that way.
So Dan, when you're doing that, are you tying your weight on? Because that pinch in a traditional drop shot weight typically cuts the line off.
Yeah, I don't know, how most guys do it, but I know that pinch that's there is, I never pinch mine down tight in that pinch on the drop shot. I always tie it on.
Yeah.
Almost
let the knot
100% of the time.
place.
Yeah. 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 I always do that. I don't ever pull it tight down in the pinch, because when you do, no matter what line you're using, you're susceptible to, it just, with all the stuff, the junk that we fish around, with all the zebra mussels and everything that we have in the Great Lakes, and it just, you're going through drop shot weights, super fast, and it just increases that. You're just throwing money out the window when you pinch it down, I think.
Yep,
Not going to trust a $9 tungsten weight to a pinch. No.
Yeah. No, I always tie them. That way I don't have that issue. No.
That is really interesting. Try that the next time and we punch all the time down here. I mean, just about I've actually gone through the bayous of Louisiana. You have your side finders out, and you don't see one fish, not one. You go up close to the weeds, and you can see fish going, pushing themselves through the weeds, and you're right next to the weeds with your 7.5 foot long rod, and going up and down with that and catching fish. It's amazing how there's nothing out there. It's featureless bayou. 3 feet of slop in the sides, full of bass. It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like some fun to me.
Yeah,
I'd much rather grab onto a. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say I would enjoy doing that as well. We don't get up here. We don't get to punch that much. We don't get to do the flipping as much as as you guys do down south. So it's a technique that when we get a chance to put on some heavy line and really lean into them, it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we don't get.
I love it once the lily pads get on.
When you hook into something in the slop, you got to pull them out of that right away. You put everything you got into that rod. Right. You got to have extra heavy actions and just pull them straight out of the water and get them in the boat. Because if he gets down into that slop, you might not get him out.
Yeah, it's combat fishing. Yeah, I love it.
All muscle.
Now, when I think of combat fishing, I'm thinking of the streams of Michigan back in the 70s when they first allowed snagging of salmon. When you're shoulder to shoulder, and every guy's got this lead core hook.
Yeah, no, that's definitely combat fishing, and that's not fun to be part of.
I was 14. I love it. I just don't have the patience.
Yeah, I've experienced that a couple times in my life up north, and went up steelhead fishing. And it's not fun to have those big treble hooks go flying by you from guys behind you. You know.
Yeah, and it's that technique. I think that technique is what kind of outlawed drop shot fishing here for many, many years. Because they were snagging them with a drop shot. Yeah,
because you would have I got a hook right here. You would tie the hook on like right here, and try to catch line runners. I saw so many people doing that. I was trying to catch steelhead with 4-pound line, and when the conservationists would come by me, they see me with my noodle rod and 4-pound line. He's not snagging. I snag him all the time. Come on. I accidentally snagged him a lot, but I was after the steelhead. I had no interest in decaying salmon. Okay, guys. The reason I wanted to have you on this show is let's talk about the American Bass Club. And there's nobody better to talk about the American Bass Club than Dan Mundy.
Well, I'm kind of losing signal here again.
Okay, I do apologize. There's nothing I can do about the technology. I'm going to have AT&T out tomorrow. Dang it. Dan, why don't you tell us about the American Bass Club? Why don't you tell the American Bass Club? Guys, I do apologize about this. I don't know what's going on. I told them this last night, and I had perfect. Boy, I tell you. Uh-oh. Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but just barely.
Tell us about the American Bass Club, please.
Well, I can tell you what I know of it. Dan is obviously the expert on it.
Let's try this and see how this works.
That sounds pretty clear.
Sounds pretty clear.
Anyway.
Right on.
Dan, why don't you tell us about the American Bass Club?
Okay, so we started the American Bass Club basically for the weekend warrior type guy, the hardworking guy. There's not a lot of options out there for guys that have a full-time gig going on or have family obligations to be able to fish for decent money. And unfortunately, when you look at a lot of the different series or circuits or trails that are out there, the payouts are going down and the entry fees are going up, and all these different things are changing in our world. And there's not a lot of options for a team event. There's not a lot of options for, like I said, the hard work American guy or gal that wants to fish. Unless you really, really commit to it, you're not going after decent, paybacks anymore. So based on that, we kind of decided to start the American Bass Club, and we did it for all those different people that are out there, to give them an opportunity to fish for something that they would never be able to have an opportunity to fish for. These are all, we basically established a regional qualifier in kind of the north, south, east, west, and central part of the United States. and we set those up so that you can fish just one regional qualifier or you can fish all 5. It's up to you. It's not a series. It's just a one-time deal. If you make the top 40 in any of those qualifiers, the top 40 will advance to a national championship that'll be held the next year. So it doesn't take up more than 1 week of your time, during the summer. You can treat it like a family event. We're trying to get back to the old days where it's more family oriented. So you can fish with your spouse if you choose to. You can fish with your son, your daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter. You can fish with your good friend, your buddy. There's not too much in the country that you can fish with your buddy and have a shot at $100,000. It just doesn't happen. So we're trying to get back to that. And saying that, in practice, you can practice with anybody in the boat as long as they're a member of the American Bass Club. So when you're pre-fishing, you can pre-fish with your family members, so you can treat it like a vacation, and it gets kind of back to family again versus, not having that scenario. And again, these are all team events. So they're, you can fish with you can fish with your good friends. So like Mike and I could fish together, or you and I could fish together in these events. You could sign up and have a good time and have a shot at some decent money.
Definitely. That sounds. Why don't you tell us about the benefits of membership of the American Bass Club?
Yeah, so you have to be a member of the American Bass Club. The membership's $69. Once you're a member of the club, there's a lot of benefits to that. We have a lot of different sponsors that are on board, and that continues to grow every day. All the sponsors are offering some form of a discount. Striker, as an example, they have some really, really good, rain gear. They have good swag. They have a lot of cool different clothing out there. They have some really nice hoodies that they've come up with. So all their stuff is really good in terms of weatherproof. But they've offered 40% to our members for American Bass Club, so it's a pretty substantial discount.
Yeah, it's an incredible discount.
Yeah. They're also doing one of their rain gear. Their rain gear is phenomenal. I mean, it's super comfortable, and it actually keeps you dry. I mean, it's crazy to think that you can actually get a rain gear and stay dry in it. Like I haven't been able to do that for many, many years. And I finally found one that I can stay dry in. But, so yeah, once you're a member of the Bass Club, you get discounts on all these different, from all of our different sponsors. And we have, straight up mounts and, eternal lithium batteries and like all the different products that you're going to use as a tournament angler out on the water. Fishing Complete is offered discounts on all their different stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Case Plastics has a new a dirty little bait that they have now. It's it looks like it's almost like a flatworm, if you will, but it has a little tiny tail off the end of the tail end of the flatworm that I don't know what it is about that, but the fish just can't stand it. Like, they love that thing.
Is it a paddle tail, Dan, or a twister?
It's a little paddle tail.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little paddle tail. And I don't have a picture of it here to show you. But if you go on Case Plastics and look up the Little Dipper, is what it's called. It's a great little bait, but you get a discount on, products from them, from, Gamma Line, Zipper Worms, Connect Outdoors. I mean, all these different. So yeah, once you're a member, you can do that. The other thing you can do as a member is you can sign up for. We have it's a free event. We have an online smallmouth and an online largemouth, and we separated those because us smallmouth guys would get killed by the guys down south when they whack a double digit, largemouth. So we gotta make it so that it's a little bit fair, right? So there's a largemouth and smallmouth tournament online. It started May 1st. It ends December 31st. And all of our sponsors are kicking in products for the winner of that as well. It's free. As a member of American Bass Club, you can jump on. And all of this stuff is done through one of the unique things about these tournaments is we're using Connect Scale. We're trying to change. My thought is that we're trying to kind of change the way that tournament fishing is done. And this Connect Scale is phenomenal for that. The Connect Scale is a Bluetooth device. It's a Bluetooth scale that goes to either your phone or your tablet and connects to that. And so when you catch a fish, you throw it on a bump board, take a picture of it, put it on the scale, weigh it, and then it goes to a live leaderboard through the Connect app. It also does it on, we'll have it on our site as well for each one of the events, but you're able to, it's still a 5 fish limit for the team. So you're looking for your 5 biggest. It automatically calls for you. It keeps track of your largest fish that you've caught, and it tracks your biggest 5. But if you go on American Bass Club, you can, purchase one of the scales through our shop, through our store online. And as a member, you can fish those free, largemouth, smallmouth tournaments all season. And you can do that from a bank. You can do that from a kayak. You can do that from your boat. You can do it from anywhere. So that's one avenue. But we did that more for the guys that are fishing the regional qualifiers to be able to get the Connect scale and get familiar with it prior to doing a regional qualifier. So they weren't trying to learn the scale during an event. They had a chance to play with that ahead of time. But it's all about conservation. So you catch your fish, throw it on a bump board, take a picture of it, weigh it on the Connect scale, log it to the tournament, save it to the tournament, and release the fish. And you never have to put a fish in a live well. So it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be really big. I mean, we've seen a lot, and Mike can attest to this from, fishing Erie and St. Clair and all of that. I think that one of the reasons that St. Clair does so well with all the fishing pressure is because it doesn't get attacked during the spawn. We have tournaments on the Michigan side during, starting the end of last week in May, but the Canadian side of the lake, which is the majority of the lake, gets closed off to fishing until last weekend. I think is when it finally, it opened up, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mike, 19th or something is when it opens.
Yeah, actually the Michigan side opened last Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. So it prevents those guys from, all the tournaments from, picking the fish on a bed and pulling them. And I think it makes a huge difference in the reproduction rate of that body of water. But in saying that, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Mike, I mean, you can chime in anytime, but I think that, and this is just my opinion, I think that because that area is so vast and it's such a big area, and because it increasingly is, it's almost always some wind somewhere and it's kind of rough in these tournaments. I think these fish, they get put in the live well, get beat up. When they get back and get released, I think we lose more fish than people realize, especially the big ones.
Yeah, for sure. They're the most susceptible on a big water ride, for sure. Last year, I was probably running, I bet, 30 miles in that super tournament, both days, maybe more than that. And those fish took a pounding.
Yeah. Well, and so in saying that, I love the concept of this and being able to catch these fish and then release them and not have to put them in a live well and treat them that way. I think, not only the fish that we see that is kind of like the elephant in the room, nobody really wants to talk about, the loss of fish at some of these tournaments, but we all know that it happens. And I think on a rough guess, I'm just guessing because I'm not a biologist and I haven't done, study after study after study to really get the numbers, but I would suspect that we lose probably 10, maybe 15% that we know of. But then the bigger fish are very susceptible. And Mike, you can attest to this. Those big fish are real susceptible to, they have that nitrogen release that goes on, and it's almost like us going into almost like a shock. Like, and that when you release those fish and they're in that state, I don't know that they survive. And the reason I say that is because if you look at St. Clair, with all the fishing pressure and all the different tournaments that have gone out of there, every year there's big venues that go out of there, and there's almost every weekend you can fish a Saturday, Sunday tournament. And that being said, there's not a lot of fish. Go ahead, Mike.
And it still produces.
Yeah, it still produces
year after year.
But there's not a lot of fish that are over the 6 pound mark that ever come in. There's not a lot of real giants.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, and I think that the reason that it still produces and it's able to sustain that is because it doesn't get beat up during the spawn. So there's a lot of fish in that system that survive. But you do that in contrast to like Saginaw Bay as an example, where they fish the spawn. We just had that the college kids went out of there last year, and the high schoolers went out of there. So that was back to back, 250 boats in a 4-day stretch. It's a 500 boats that pull fish, and it's all during the spawn. So those come back way back into the Saginaw River and get released. I think it's going to have a major impact. It's happened 2 years in a row, and I already see the impact this year just from last year. And I think it's going to have a major impact moving forward in terms of, the amount of fish that are out there and the size that you actually catch. So those are just my thoughts. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to push so hard to do the connect scale and have tournaments that way, because it's a catch and release at that point, but you still have your 5 fish limit. You're still going for the 5 big fish. It's not about your quantity. It's about the quality of fish that you're catching.
Yeah. It's almost a form of MLF, really, in reality.
It is.
Except
it
you're
is.
building your best 5.
Yep. You're doing your best 5, and we also do a big fish. So, that'll keep track of. We can choose on the back end of the Connect scale system. We can tell it, if we want to do a big fish pot or not, and it will also, it'll track the big fish. So, even if you're, one of the teams that's maybe down and in one of the lower places, 80th, 90th place in the tournament, and you've caught the biggest fish, you're still going to show up on the leaderboard as having the big fish of the tournament.
So let me ask you a question. Will the competitors be able to see what the other competitors have in this live web?
No, you have to actually within the app, you have to actually purposely go to the live leaderboard to look at it. And in the rules, we've deemed that you can't, we don't want the anglers doing that. And the reason being is that I already know what's going to happen when you're talking that kind of money, and you have guys running across the lake, in search of big fish, looking for that big bag, and they see Mike Trombley as an example fishing. And they've been watching the live leaderboard, and Mike's and leading the tournament, or he's in second or third place. They're going to put the brakes on and fish around and really crowd him. So we've decided
he already has 25 pounds. So let's follow him. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we decided that if you're in the tournament and you're on the tournament waters during the tournament, you're not allowed to look at, just like any other social media aspect of, these guys are all, you're not allowed to look at any kind of social media posts that are private during tournaments. You're not allowed to be on your phone. I mean, all those things are all common rules that all these guys have to follow. And that's one of the questions that will be asked. We have a licensed polygraph agent that will be at every one of the events to polygraph the guys, at the end. And we're doing, the top 3 teams, and we're also doing random draws out of the top 40. So those are all things that are part of the rules, and they're things that ethical guys don't do. I mean, that's just stuff that you wouldn't do. And part, like we said, part of the rules are that you're not allowed to look at that live leaderboard until the end of the day. At the end of the day of the tournament, then you can look at it. However, it will be streamed live on our website. It'll be streamed live on the Connect Scale site, and it'll be streamed live at the weigh-in trailer. So you'll be able to see, any of the fans will be able to look at it and see who's leading, and who's on first, who's on second, who's on third, that kind of thing. So,
I'm looking through these qualifiers, Dan. You got Lake Cumberland, you got Lake Okeechobee, you have what's that one out east, the St. Lawrence River.
St. Lawrence River. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's an all-star.
They're all good. They're all good bodies of water. And here's the interesting thing. They're all in the fall. They're not in the spring. They're, a couple of the things that we're trying to do to kind of break the mold, if you will, is that we're trying to go back to the old school days, where your family was really involved in these tournaments. So you can bring the family and make it a family vacation and fish with them while you're pre-fishing. right? You don't put them on the bank and say, go find something fun to do while I fish all day. If you guys want to fish together, you're able to do that. You can fish with your buddy. It's a team event. Team events have kind of went by the wayside. Everything's been geared more towards boater co-angler rather than team events. So we're trying to bring that back so you can fish with your buddy or your son or your daughter or your wife, or, trying to make it more of a family push. And then we're trying to get rid of the carrying the fish in your live well and taking them all over the place. And we're also trying to get away from the spawn. All of these tournaments, if you look at almost all these different tournaments that have been scheduled, they're all pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. Well, I don't know about you, Mike, but all my biggest fish, like all my personal best, have come in the fall.
Yeah, it's fall
like
time.
Some of the bigger fish you're going to catch in your lifetime are going to be in the fall. So a lot of these bodies of water don't see a lot of fishing pressure in the fall. A lot of guys kind of have been geared and kind of trained, if you will, to where when it gets past, July, a lot of these big tournament circuits are all kind of shutting down, and there's really not a lot of stuff to fish. And I know, and you can tell by Mike and I are a little bit alike like that, but I love to hunt, and Mike does too. And you can tell by looking behind him, he's got some dandies on the wall there. But in saying that, we also fish in the fall. Like I've fished all the way up in Michigan. I fished all the way into January when the water's still open. I'm still fishing, and Mike's the same way. I mean, we all, if you love to be on the water, you still spend time on the water and do that. And like I said, some of the biggest fish I've ever caught have been, largemouth and smallmouth both have been in the fall. So I'm really looking forward to. I cannot wait to see, some of the weights that come out of some of these bodies of water in the fall. It's going to be phenomenal. These are all good bodies of water, and they all have big fish in them, and so it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out for a later in the season type tournaments.
That's really interesting. I like the format. I really like everything you've said. Mike, would you like to do a couple shout outs, Mike?
Yeah, sponsor wise. Yeah.
Yes.
How about
absolutely.
Rods, Ranger Boats, Mike's RX Baits? Yeah, just to mention a few. Todd at Power Tools, I'd put a shout out to him. Yeah.
Do you have any others?
Nobody I'm going to mention.
Okay, that's fine. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, just like I said before, all the different sponsors that we have on board have been, phenomenal. And it's crazy because really, I think because we're what we stand for and what we're trying to do with the whole, trying to not carry these fish around, to try, for the conservation standpoint of it. I think that most of the guys that I talk to in the industry and most of the guys that I've talked to as far as sponsorship goes, they're all on board. So that sponsor list for us continues to grow, on a daily basis. We keep adding more people on. We just recently added, Straight Up Mounts and the Eternal Lithium. Those guys are awesome. And it can, like I said, it continues to grow. And I think you're going to see, even more of that. I think as it gets more traction and more people find out about it and we're able to talk to you. I haven't, the unfortunate thing is that I've been so busy. I haven't been able to reach out to, I have a ton of guys that I know in the industry that I haven't even been able to reach out to yet because I've just been so busy trying to get, the site up and get it out there, get the word out and get everything structured and set up. So we haven't had time to really reach out to a lot of the guys that really want to, but it's coming. I mean, we have a lot of good ones thus far and it's going to keep growing. So you can see all of that. You can see all the different sponsors that we have on our website, and you can see, what they're doing as far as, a percentage for the members. You can see that, just by going to the website and checking it out at AmericanBassClub.com.
Okay, AmericanBassClub.com, just like you see crawling on the bottom of the screen there, folks. Check that out, AmericanBassClub.com. There's a lot of good things to this tournament. You have several tournaments that you can choose from. Lake Cumberland looks interesting to me.
It's the right time of year.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that lake.
Yeah, the guys that have Kevin that lives down there, and a good friend of mine. And he was saying that the time of year that we're there, he said it should be phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that one. And it's a beautiful place to go. If you haven't been there before, it's fantastic. That place is absolutely beautiful.
And I bet you're going to see some big weights out there on your St. Lawrence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, St.
There's
Lawrence
no doubt.
would be pretty phenomenal.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm like, I can't, most of these, I can't wait to get there. And the funny thing is, after looking at this, I've wanted to fish, and Mike, this, I wanted to fish tournaments my entire life. This is all I've ever wanted to do, is to fish tournaments. And because there's really not what I see is a good, tournament series to fish right now in terms of from an economic standpoint. That's one of the reasons why we put together this American Bass Club, and I'm not fishing it. Like, I think it's a conflict of interest for me to fish it. So I'm just putting it together and directing it and doing it for everybody else, for all you guys to have an opportunity to fish for something that you would never have that opportunity for. But
yeah, it's
I
pretty
can't
neat
wait to get to
opportunity. Most guys in this day and age, if you're going to fish for something where, so let's say this is a team event, so you're going to split $100,000. That's $50,000 a piece. If you win a Toyota Series, if you win a Northern Open, anything like that, you're looking at making less than that, unless you have a contingency boat.
Right.
So
right.
with what you're offering, a guy, they've got a shot at, that team is going to split $100,000. That's $50,000 a piece, and you're paying back very well. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it pays down 40 places. Top 10 get at least 10 grand back. So it's a good payback. And obviously it's based on participation. Obviously, all these tournament series, any tournament that you fish is based on participation. But if we have a full field, that those are the payouts. And I can't. I mean, Melissa is out of her mind wanting to hand somebody $100,000 check. She's like, that's my job. I want to hand them $100,000 check. She's like, I cannot wait. I can't wait to do it. She's like, I want to change somebody's life so bad. It's great to see that, how excited she is about, being part of what's going on and wanting to do that. But in saying all of that, if you're in the top 40, now you have a shot at the national championship, which is worth $250,000 for first place. $50,000 for second place, and it still pays 40 places down. Like, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. But it's about participation. I mean, you have to have everybody involved. So, we want to get everybody there, and we're trying to get the word out to everybody so that everybody once everybody hears about it, they'll, anybody that I've talked to and anybody that has heard about it has been 100% on board, because it is an awesome opportunity.
So are you going to put an upper limit on how many people can participate? How many teams?
200 teams. That's the max. So you have about a 25% chance that you're going to go to the national championship. Not quite, but close.
And the beauty of it is you don't have a weigh-in. You don't have to deal with all the anglers crossing stage, which is usually
we are gonna bring. Yeah, no, and you, Mike, you've been part of a lot of those situations. I sure have, where you get there and everything is backed up and your fish are not doing well in the live well, and you're trying to get a bag, and you're like, man, this is. Then it just takes
your batteries are getting low.
Yeah, none of that stuff goes on. We are, however, going to bring the top 40 across the stage, and talk to them on Sunday. These are 2-day events. They're not a 1-day deal. They're also, they're 2-day events. And we purposely did that. We did that so, a guy doesn't just go down and magically hit, one big fish and kind of run away with it. We've all kind of seen that happen in these 1-day events. And this way you have to have you have to put a little bit of skill involved in what's going on, because you're doing it for 2 days. But on the second day, at the end of that, on the first day of the weigh-in, all you have to do is check in. You check in, you can check the live leaderboard, see where you stand, and get ready for the next day. Then on day 2, we're going to take the top 40 across the stage. and talk to them about their day, briefly. But it's 40 teams. It's not the full field, so it'll go by a lot faster than a normal scenario.
Interesting. So you have anybody you want to shout out to, Dan?
Just, all of our sponsors. I mean, like I said, we've got, Striker, Fishing Complete, Berkeley, Abu Garcia, the Pure Bass guys, or the Pure Fishing guys, Connect Scales, Zipper Worms. Really want to put a shout out to Ben Nowak, to Bass Geek, to Extreme Outdoorsman. I mean, all these guys are all guys that do Fin and Feather. You guys need to go check out all their podcasts and all the stuff that they do. Those guys work pretty tirelessly to provide information to everybody out there about the fishing industry. And they're all good guys. You get to know those guys. They're all phenomenal guys. And they have a lot of knowledge to share about smallmouth and largemouth. They're all good fishermen. So the straight up mounts, the Eternal Lithium, Bassin Magazine, those guys are all, everybody's been really, really supportive, and I can't thank them enough. But the first and foremost person that I have to thank always is my wife, Melissa. She's phenomenal. Like, Mike knows, if you don't have a good spouse behind you, you really are in trouble.
Yes, family's your main support system. 100%.
That's absolutely right. And that's part of why we want to get back to the whole family portion of this, and make it more family oriented, where you can do these as a family and travel and make these vacation destinations and have fun with your family and have a shot at doing what you love to do, fish and potentially make some money doing it. I can't think of anything better. There's nothing more disheartening. I went to Cumberland as an example on a national championship. We rented a beautiful house. We stayed in Cumberland. It's a beautiful area. We had a beautiful scenery. Everything was perfect. I had a bunch of aunts, and I had 2 aunts and uncles come through that were on their way to Florida, and they stayed with us for a couple days. And the kids came down and brought, some of the grandkids with them. And we're all down there at this phenomenal setting. And I could not put one of them on the boat and take them for a ride even, through Lake Cumberland to show them, how beautiful that place is from a water's view. And of course they all wanted to go for a boat ride. Some of them wanted to fish, couldn't do it because we were in a tournament and they weren't allowed in the boat. So we're trying to get back to where that stuff is all more family oriented and designed for that scenario versus, leaving your family sitting on the bank.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, it's different. Like I said, there's a few things that we're trying to bend and manipulate the mold a little different direction than what it has been for the last few years. That's all. Hopefully in a good way. Yeah, hopefully in a good way.
I bet you are. That's just great. You guys, I'd like to thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Come and talk to our listeners here on the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. And Dan, thank you for all you do in the industry. And Mike, man, I love hearing about the stories about the big smallmouth bass that you guys actually both catch. It just makes me so jealous living down here in the land of heat. You guys are up there in the land of walleyes, whitetails, and smallmouth bass.
So I got to ask you, Jay, how does a northern guy end up in Louisiana?
Yeah, how does that happen?
I came down here to make a lot of money working oil, and I made a lot of money for a lot of years. And then all of a sudden, the oil business, politics made it impossible to drill in the Gulf anymore. And so they had to get rid of about half of us. And since I was an old guy, in my 50s, now I'm back to working for the government again. But, I'm down here.
We're wishing we were with you long about probably December and January.
You know what? I love going out there and fishing redfish in December and January. It's 55, 60 degrees out on the water. Very, I'm used to wind. I come from Illinois. Jeez.
Yeah.
Where,
Fish in Venice is on my bucket list. I would love
redfish are just Smallmouth bass fishermen would love redfish, man.
Yeah, you and I both, Mike. I that's one of the things I want to do. Tarpon in Florida and redfish in Louisiana. Those are two things that are on my bucket list to go do.
Yeah, we need to go do that. Jay, how far are you from Venice?
Geez, probably 3 hours.
Okay.
I very rarely fish out of Venice. Most of the fishing I do is like Delacroix and Hopedale and Grand Isle. Just Venice is, you really get in there. It can be real dangerous.
Okay.
But if you're going to go there, I would definitely recommend having a guide, a guy who's out on that water every single day, knows what to do and what not to do. And also, when you look at this, guys from the north, you find key areas, key spots. In the south, it's all looks like it's perfect. It's perfect habitat, and the marsh is the same way. You've got hundreds of miles of stuff that look like it all should hold redfish. Well, if you've ever fished down south, you got hundreds of miles of something that looks like something right out of a textbook. Where do largemouth bass live? Well, they also live right. You go move 5 feet, and there's another cypress tree with 300 knees around it. Jeez, it should all hold largemouth bass. It really should. They're at this time of the year. They're in the shadows. And so you skip underneath the cypress, but there's, it's hard for a northern guy to wrap his brain around that. At least it was for.
It sounds like a lot of the rock flats and giant stuff that we have on the Great Lakes, where you go, everything that you look at as you're going along is like, man, this is awesome. This looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's the Dead Sea for miles, and then all of a sudden you run into a pod of 30 fish. It's just perfect. But it's so amazing how
Ohio has so many reefs there. When you look at Port Clinton area, and not all reefs are created equal.
Not all of them.
Right.
And sometimes you look down there, look, it's floated, and they're all sheepheads.
They're
all sheepheads.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what guys, thank you so much for participating in the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. I really have a good time talking to you guys. And again, all I can do is apologize about can't do anything.
Yeah, it happens. Thanks for having us on, Jay.
Yeah, thank you so much for the
AT&T will be out here tomorrow. We don't know it yet. But anyways, man, Mike, it was great to talk to you. And Dan, it was great to talk to you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice
guys. I appreciate it.
You Mike. Guys.
And you know what, guys?
Thank you, Mike.
I want to talk to all of our listeners. Guys, have fun. Go get out there and do some fishing, because you only get to do this once. So you might as well just spend as much time on the water as you can.
Yeah, we only get one trip around. Better make the most of it.
That's a fact. That's an absolute fact, man. Life is it's amazing how quick things happen in life. There's different things that remind me of that. Yesterday, happy Father's Day to all you guys, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And everybody listening. I yesterday at Father's Day, we had, I had all the kids were over, the grandkids were over this weekend. And so I got to see all of them, and man, it's amazing how fast they grow. Like, I can't believe how big they are. Like, first of all, I can't believe how big our kids are. The 2 boys are just giants, which I don't know how that happened. And then the grandkids are all just getting big, and it's so much fun having all of them around, but it's amazing how fast that happens. Like, it seems like yesterday, our kids were just little tykes, right? And now they're full grown and have kids. It's just, it happens so fast that, yeah, it's
turn around, you're in your mid-50s.
You got to take advantage. Yeah, you got to take advantage of. Yeah, in a blink of an eye. Exactly. So
I am glad I did so much fishing when I was younger. It's not as easy now.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? A day spent on Lake Erie, 3 and 4 foot waves, it feels a little different now than it used to.
You definitely don't have a problem putting your head on the pillow, do you, Mike?
No, that is for sure.
No.
Yeah, it gets tougher and tougher. Steve Clapper and I fished a tournament back in April, And I think Steve's 74, if I'm not mistaken, what he was telling me. And I was amazed. Steve's a machine, you know. His drive to be able to get out and fish tournaments like Steve does. He's a great friend, and it's pretty impressive to see what he's able to do at his age.
Yeah, that is. Hopefully I can fish half as much as he does when I get his age.
Yeah, I hear you. Me too.
That would be, I know. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, he is a phenomenal person.
Well, thank you guys very much. I'd like to say, Let's Talk Fishing podcast brought to you by Grant Rods, American Bass Club, Crusher Lures. Have a good night, guys. Please stick around, Mike.
Sure will. Thanks, Jay.